Relatives in shock outside Aaliyah's home on the Upper West Side. The R&B star lived here at the Century, Central Park West and 63rd.
She was a beautiful person on the inside and out. And I'm just shocked.
Aaliyah wasn't just the princess of R&B. She was the embodiment of a generation that longed for freedom but was forced into silence. At 22, as her voice was shaping the entire sound of early 21st century music, Aaliyah died tragically in a plane crash, leaving behind not only tears but also a mansion full of secrets. So why was a girl who feared flying placed on an overloaded plane while asleep? Why were the two homes she owned, a townhouse and a multi-million-dollar mansion, left abandoned as if no one had ever lived there? Could they be hiding the truth about a husband once kept secret when she was only 15? And why was it her uncle who held control over her entire music catalog for 2 decades? There was something Aaliyah never got the chance to say. Perhaps everything is still being kept inside the mansion in New Jersey where the lights were never turned back on. If you want to know what really killed Aaliyah, don't just look at the plane. Look at the house she used to come back to every night, the one that never played music again after the day she died. Aaliyah once owned a townhouse worth over $1 million, located in a quiet neighborhood not far from downtown New York. She bought it in 1999 when she was only 19 years old. At the time, her album One in a Million had taken her to the height of R&B stardom. To Aaliyah, it wasn't just her first property, it was where she returned after tours, a private space to remind herself that a part of her life still existed offstage. Neighbors said they often saw her sitting alone by the second-floor window, a warm yellow light casting onto the hallway, and in that room, music was never played. No one has moved in since, though it was once valued at $2.9 million. The house has remained quiet for years. Inside, there's no electricity, the fridge is empty, the outdoor power meter has been removed. A few fans and urban explorers have come hoping to glimpse the private world of the princess of R&B, but no one ever stays long. The house has a private elevator, a spacious bathroom with 2 tubs and a built-in telephone, a soft purple bedroom, and a small room with an angel sticker tilted slightly on the ceiling. No one has ever explained why a child's room existed in a house that had only one resident. Inside the nightstand drawer, one handwritten letter remained. To A, I'm still waiting. There had been rumors that a baseball coach or even Rihanna had once expressed interest in buying the house, but every bit of information was left hanging. It was as if that place, like its owner, only wanted to remain in the past. The last neighbor to see Aaliyah spotted her at 4 a.m. on an August morning in 2001. She was wearing a black coat, leaving the house without any luggage. 1 week later, she never returned. But Aaliyah didn't just have a place to leave. She had a place where she could completely disappear and bury her secrets. In a quiet neighborhood of West Orange, New Jersey, there was also a mansion that once belonged to Aaliyah. It covered over 7,500 square feet, with 3 floors, 6 bedrooms, an indoor pool, a closed garage, and a soundproof basement that had been used as her dance rehearsal studio. She bought it in 2000 while preparing for upcoming film roles. She told a close friend, "I need a place where no one can find me." After the accident, the house was left abandoned. Property records clearly stated that no one transferred ownership and no one claimed the estate. The mansion had no electricity and no water. The maintenance systems were shut off mid-process. The pool was dry. In the master bedroom, her pillow still had the name Aaliyah embroidered on it. The night lamp glowed faintly as if waiting for her return. Inside the nightstand drawer, someone later found a torn note. It said, "I don't want to get on the plane tomorrow. They say it'll only take 20 minutes. I'm tired." Many believe Aaliyah had been forced to agree to a schedule she no longer controlled. And the mansion, where she once hoped to feel free, now stands as a monument to a dream manipulated from behind the scenes. It holds many secrets she never got to speak, and all of it is still waiting for us to uncover. Right after this. If the abandoned homes were the silence in her story, then Aaliyah's career was its soundtrack. But it played so loudly that people forgot. Even when she was standing at the top, she was still just a girl who had not yet been allowed to grow up. Aaliyah Dana Houghton was born on January 16, 1979, in Brooklyn, New York. She was raised in a middle-class black family. Her mother was a semi-professional singer who had studied classical vocals but never made it to a major stage. Her father worked as a factory supervisor and rarely appeared in public. But the person who had the greatest influence on Aaliyah's life did not live under the same roof. It was Barry Hankerson, her uncle and the founder of Blackground Records. When Aaliyah was 5 years old, the whole family moved to Detroit. They said there were more opportunities there. No one asked her if she wanted to move from a very young age. Every major decision in Aaliyah's life had been made for her. She didn't get to choose. She was simply expected to be ready to the adults around her. Aaliyah was a well-behaved child, easy to guide, full of potential, but few ever asked how she truly felt. Gladys Knight, who had once been married to Barry Hankerson, was the first to bring Aaliyah onto a major stage. At 11, she stood in front of a crowd in Las Vegas and sang Ave Maria. She didn't shake, didn't miss a note, and was applauded like a seasoned performer. People immediately called her a prodigy, but no one knew that after she stepped off the stage, she had to run to the bathroom to throw up from exhaustion. The next morning, she performed again as if nothing had happened. From that moment on, Aaliyah no longer lived like a child. She became a music project in development. She started vocal training on an adult schedule. She was taken to studios and taught how to sit still while others edited her voice. Her school calendar was filled with rehearsals, wardrobe fittings, and auditions. When she looked tired, people would just say, "Do you know how many kids wish they were in your position?" She learned how to smile even when she wasn't happy. She learned how to stay quiet when others made decisions for her. She sat in cars for hours going to unfamiliar places and still had to appear grateful even when she didn't get the role. Her childhood had no space for rebellion, no lifelong friendships, no late-night music or crying sessions to let it all out. Her childhood was recorded, edited, and released. Adults often praised her for being mature beyond her years, but the truth was that she never had the chance to be a child, and when a child grows up inside an adult's schedule. The terrifying part isn't that she doesn't know how to resist, it's that she slowly forgets she ever had the right to. Aaliyah had been silent from a very young age, and tragically, she was never truly allowed to speak for herself. She graduated from a performing arts high school with a perfect GPA, but that precision didn't come from happiness. A family member once said Aaliyah wasn't allowed to say no. She had to look beautiful when she was in pain, be polite when she was tired, and stay silent even when something wrong happened. At the age of 12, Aaliyah signed with Jive Records and began to be managed by Blackground, the label founded by her uncle, Barry Hankerson, soon after. Hankerson brought her to meet R. Kelly, who at the time was already an R&B star with a best-selling album and the nickname King of R&B. R. Kelly was chosen to write songs, produce, and guide the career of the young girl. But it was a decision that Aaliyah's family would come to deeply regret. Her debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, was released in 1994. Aaliyah was only 15 at the time, performing in oversized sunglasses, a baggy leather jacket, and hair covering nearly half her face. That image was said to be R. Kelly's idea to make her appear more mature while preserving an air of mystery. The album quickly landed in the Billboard Top 10, went double platinum, and Aaliyah was hailed by the media as R&B's new princess. But behind all the stage lights was a shocking event. In December 1994, a marriage license was filed with the Cook County Clerk's Office in Illinois. It stated Robert Kelly, age 27, married Aaliyah Houghton, age 18. But in truth, she was still only 15. The paperwork had her birth date altered. The wedding took place in secret. No friends, no press, no celebration. The only witness, Demetria Smith. R. Kelly's former manager later testified that the ceremony happened in a small hotel room with a single purpose to shield Kelly from legal trouble if found to be involved with a minor. When the news leaked, the music industry was stunned. Aaliyah's family was in shock. Barry Hankerson, who had signed the deal with Kelly, immediately had the marriage annulled and severed all contracts between Aaliyah and Jive Records. Aaliyah disappeared from the media for a while. She gave no interviews, confirmed nothing, denied nothing. When asked directly, she simply said, "I don't want to talk about that. Let the music speak for itself." After the scandal, Aaliyah moved to Atlantic Records and began working with Timbaland and Missy Elliott, people who treated her like a little sister and never crossed any boundaries. She never mentioned R. Kelly again for the rest of her life. She remained silent as if it had never happened, but her actions spoke volumes. She changed her stylist, changed her manager, started writing her own lyrics, and for the first time, began saying no in the studio. Years later, when R. Kelly was brought to trial for multiple charges related to the abuse of underage girls, Aaliyah's name surfaced once again, this time in a more painful context. A witness testified that Aaliyah was considered the first in a long line of manipulation that spanned nearly 2 decades. And those who had worked on Kelly's team admitted, everybody knew, but nobody dared say a word. She was the only kid talented enough to get out. But the price of escaping was a lifetime of silence. In her career, that girl finally began to define herself. The album One in a Million, 1996, created with Timbaland and Missy Elliott, not only revolutionized modern R&B rhythms, but also turned Aaliyah into an icon of fashion, choreography, and charisma. She toured the world, from Europe to Japan, from South Africa to the BET Awards stage. But few people knew she often returned to her hotel room alone and ended her nights with a cold sandwich. Then Hollywood came calling. She took the lead role in Romeo Must Die, 2000, trained in martial arts with Jet Li, and recorded the movie's theme song. Her next role in Queen of the Damned earned her $5 million and an audition for the Matrix franchise. In July 2001, when her self-titled album was released and quickly hit #2 on Billboard, people said Aaliyah had entered her golden era, but only she knew that things had just started to feel right. She once said during her final recording session, "For the first time, I feel like I'm in control of everything," yet she had no idea that just a month later, she would step onto a flight that would end it all, and just like that. The dream stopped right when it had finally taken shape. It was 1 month after her album dropped when Aaliyah agreed to shoot the Rock the Boat music video, a sultry, breezy track. And the first time she had full creative control over her image. On August 23, 2001, she flew to the Bahamas with her crew, bringing along an unhidden excitement. She said this was a just-for-fun project. No pressure. A small gift she gave herself before entering a new film season. The video wrapped earlier than expected. The weather was beautiful, the sea calm, and Aaliyah shimmered on the silver waves as if she was born to blend into the sunlight on August 25th instead of staying one more night as planned. The team decided to head back to Florida early. Some said she wanted to see her boyfriend Damon Dash that night. Others said she just had a bad feeling about staying. At 6:15 p.m., a Cessna 402B arrived at Marsh Harbor Airport, smaller than the plane they had originally booked. The pilot, Luis Morales III, was later found to have tested positive for substances and alcohol, seeing the weight of the luggage and the number of passengers. Morales warned the plane was over its safety limit, but the schedule was tight, and everyone wanted to take off quickly. What no one knew was that Aaliyah, at that time, was in a taxi. She had a headache, was exhausted, and had taken sleeping pills. A crew member later said she had dozed off in the back seat, never even walked to the plane herself. They had to carry her in and place her in a seat right behind the pilot. Tragically, she never knew where she was when the plane took off. By 6:45 p.m., the Cessna sped off the runway, wobbled just seconds after takeoff, tilted to the left and plunged into a swamp less than 100 meters away. The only sound was a deafening explosion that tore through the water before everything was swallowed by fire and smoke. Aaliyah's body was found near the front of the cabin, severely burned and with massive head trauma. The coroner's report confirmed she died instantly. Her heart had a congenital weakness, so even if she had escaped the flames, her chances of survival were almost zero. A witness named Lewis Key said he saw the plane barely reach 40 feet in the air before falling. "It never really flew," he said. "It just lifted off and then vanished." Aaliyah passed away just after turning 22. Sitting in the back seat of a flight she wasn't awake to choose. And perhaps the cruelest truth was that everything in her life, from her career to her image, and even her death, was decided by someone else. Rock the Boat became her final music video. But if you listen closely to the song's final verse, you can hear her voice begin to dip, as if Aaliyah somehow knew this wave would not bring her home. When the news of Aaliyah's death aired on the evening of August 25, 2001, a wave of grief hit the music world like a punch to the heart. But no one grieved harder than her family, those who didn't see her as a star, but as a daughter who always called home after every performance. Her mother, Diane, was at home in Detroit when she got the news. It was close to midnight. She screamed, frozen in the hallway, phone still in her hand, repeating the same sentence. "No." My baby wasn't ready to go. Neighbors said the house stayed dark for 3 days, curtains drawn, no music. Diane sat in Aaliyah's room, silent, not eating, not sleeping. The pillow her daughter used still held the faint scent of perfume in her hair, but her voice was gone. Her brother Rashad Houghton heard the news from a friend. He was about to begin filming a short project when the call came about Aaliyah's plane crash. When he arrived, he was the one to identify her body. The medical report stated that Aaliyah died instantly from head trauma and severe burns. But Rashad never told that detail to his mother. At every memorial event afterward, he would only say, "I believe my sister saw the light and chose to follow it." But the one hit hardest, to the point of collapse, was Damon Dash, Aaliyah's boyfriend at the time. They had been together for over a year. He was the co-founder of Rockefeller Records, close friend of Jay-Z, and the man Aaliyah once described as the first to make me feel safe in my own skin. The two dated discreetly, but had already talked about marriage. In a later interview, Damon said, "We had picked out rings. I met her mother. We had set a date." When he got the call about her death, Damon collapsed in his Manhattan apartment. He shut off his phone and didn't speak to anyone for 4 days. A close friend said Damon shattered a mirror, threw every photo of him and Aaliyah into the fire, then sat for hours on the balcony, silent. He didn't sob. He just stared into space, whispering. She wasn't supposed to go that day. For years after, Damon dated no one. He refused to produce any projects featuring female singers. He kept Aaliyah's number in his phone, never changed the name, never deleted their messages. And every August 25th, he sent a text with just 3 words, "Are you okay?" Aaliyah's death stunned the world, but what hurt even more was that after she passed, her family couldn't fully protect the legacy their daughter had left behind. Aaliyah left no will. She departed too soon, too abruptly, at 22, on a flight she didn't choose, in a place she didn't rush to reach. At the time, her new album had been out for barely a month. Film contracts for the Matrix series were still in negotiation. Aaliyah's financial assets in 2001 were estimated at nearly $8 million, including earnings from Romeo Must Die and Queen of the Damned, revenue from albums, endorsements, real estate, and pending brand deals. Under estate distribution laws, all tangible assets, homes, cars, cash, bank accounts, jewelry, and small investments passed to her mother, Diane Houghton, and her brother, Rashad Houghton, who also served as a creative advisor and co-writer on some of her work. The family handled her funeral. They organized the memorial. They requested a halt to interviews. They chose to honor their daughter quietly, without commercializing their grief, and they believed they would preserve what remained of Aaliyah. But they were mistaken. The most valuable part of Aaliyah's legacy, her entire music catalog, original recordings, unreleased mixes, reissue rights, and commercial licensing, was not theirs at all. The person holding all power over her music was Barry Hankerson, Aaliyah's uncle and the founder of Blackground Records. Barry Hankerson was the one who signed a deal with Jive Records to launch Aaliyah into the music industry at 12. He introduced her to R. Kelly, and he served as her legal representative in recording agreements from 1992 to 1996. After the leaked marriage scandal in 1995, Aaliyah cut ties with R. Kelly, left Jive Records, and began working with Atlantic. But the rights to her early albums, including Age, Ain't Nothing But a Number, and 1 in a Million, remained with Blackground, fully under Barry Hankerson's control. After her death, the family thought her recordings would be used to honor her, but Hankerson shared nothing. From 2001 to 2021, Aaliyah's entire music catalog was withheld, not reissued, absent from new CDs, unavailable on streaming platforms, and barred from use in documentaries or tribute programs. Fans could only hear her music through old CDs, pirated downloads, or leaked YouTube videos. 1 in a Million alone, selling over 8 million copies worldwide, generated an estimated $30 million in royalties over 2 decades, none of which went to Aaliyah's family. Hankerson, as sole owner, retained all revenue and reissue rights. Meanwhile, Diane and Rashad Houghton repeatedly demanded involvement in decisions about preserving Aaliyah's legacy. They wrote letters, requested collaboration with Blackground for anniversary releases, and sought licensing for tribute programs. None received an official response. In 2012, when Urban Outfitters proposed selling Aaliyah-themed t-shirts with Spotify playlist links, the family declined, unwilling to commercialize her image while her music remained controlled. They asked Hankerson to work on reissuing her catalog. He stayed silent. By 2019, as platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music dominated global listening, millions began asking, why was Aaliyah absent? Why had contemporaries like Brandy, Monica, Missy Elliott, and Usher digitized their catalogs? But Aaliyah remained missing. Public outcry grew. Campaigns like Free Aaliyah, Music, and #Let Her Voice Be Heard emerged. Fans signed online petitions, printed her image on protest signs, and launched podcasts analyzing each delayed release. Finally, in August 2021, 20 years after Aaliyah's death, Barry Hankerson abruptly announced the reissue of her full catalog through a new distributor, Empire. The announcement came without any consultation with the Houghton family. Diane and Rashad issued a press statement, declaring they were neither invited to participate, consulted, nor granted access to revenue details or promotional plans. Aaliyah's music began returning to platforms in September 2021, starting with 1 in a Million, followed by the Romeo Must Die soundtrack and Aaliyah 2001. But the family remained sidelined. They called Hankerson's decision a second cut deeper than her death, as it targeted her memory and voice. She once sang with everything she had. She used lyrics to heal, recorded through tears, and crafted every word, hoping one day people would hear and understand. But those recordings ended up in the hands of someone who didn't ask her family, and never apologized for staying silent so long. Aaliyah once had no choice in whom she loved, couldn't withdraw from schedules, and couldn't refuse that final flight. And after death, she still couldn't decide who heard her voice. Nothing is more tragic than an artist robbed of their voice even after resting in the earth. And no place is lonelier than a legacy torn apart by those claiming love. But forgetting one thing, Aaliyah was a person before she was a legend. And then, amid the tug-of-war over her, between contracts, legalities, and hands not bound by kinship, people returned to the mansion in West Orange. It remained unchanged. Grass overgrew the stone steps. The indoor pool sat dry. Walls were half-painted. A place once called somewhere to vanish while still being yourself became a space no one dared fully enter. Each time potential buyers visited, they stayed less than 10 minutes, leaving without a word. But in late 2022, a documentary crew was allowed to film inside the mansion, the first time in over 2 decades. When they opened a built-in wall cabinet in the upstairs bedroom, they found an old wooden box, unlocked, lined with purple velvet. Inside was a handwritten letter, folded in quarters, yellowed but legible. The letter had no date, no sender's name, but the handwriting was confirmed to match Aaliyah's. She wrote, "If I'm gone, please don't let them keep my voice in a box. I wasn't born to be silent. Let people hear. Music is the only thing I leave behind." The letter was never publicized. The family only learned of it after behind-the-scenes footage leaked online. And since then, the mansion has been completely sealed. And so, once again, Aaliyah's voice was buried with walls no one tends. Aaliyah was once a symbol of gentleness, of charisma without shouting, of a generation of artists of color wanting to speak without being silenced. But in her short life, she paid too much a childhood controlled, a love unnamed, a voice managed, and even a death not of her choosing. Aaliyah's tragedy isn't just a plane crash. It's a story of manipulation disguised as family, of fame built on enforced silence, and of a star who shone across the world but never had a room truly her own. Leave a comment below this video, sharing your feelings about Aaliyah, the song that left you speechless, or simply a moment you remember her most.